Hey everyone, welcome back. I had another video in me this week. I'll be out of town this coming week, so I figured I'd throw together another video because I have some thoughts about a very enlightening and interesting comment that came out of SCL this week with Benoit. Ooh, we got some lag, and I wanted to talk about it. So there was a comment about silos, not the hit Apple TV show, but silos as in the groups that are. Oh, I love it when assets don't load. Silos for development for Star Citizen. So we've got all these different groups within the team that are doing their own job, which is typical, very normal of any company, very typical of any game studio, any organization. Like it's a typical thing. You got different groups that are going to do different things. No problem with that. I got no problem with that. However, there was one thing mentioned that I did have a problem with that I wanted to talk. Oh, I didn't need water. I needed food. Whatever. Whatever. Drop it. Sorry, I lit her. But I wanted to talk about something that stood out to me about that part of the conversation. Let's just double check that my loadout isn't sure here. And that is the mention. There we go. Now it's coming. It was the mention about, and Jared even kind of pointed out, and I don't know that he meant to point it out in this way, but he pointed out, yeah, that's why you could buy this specific ship weapon here and break it down into parts and go sell those parts over here for a bunch times more than what you paid for the weapon. And I don't know how many of you, oh my gosh, the lag is real. I don't know if the assets are just is stuff in there. So I don't know if they meant to say that. I don't know how much of that was like kind of candid, oh crap, and they can't take it back now. But it kind of reveals something that is potentially a problem with how they're developing the game. So in a persistent world, you need, oh my gosh, these assets are not loading in. In a persistent world like this, you need some unity across the entirety of the project. You need some unified vision and some understanding of where everybody's going and how they're getting there. It's a leadership problem. So, leadership is something that's very important to me, personally and professionally. I have been in leadership roles and I have had great leaders. I've had not so great leaders as well. And when you have not so great leaders, there's a lot of problems that come up. You've got things like a lack of vision, you have a lack of motivation, you have a lack of understanding of expectation. There's just the list goes on and on of the problems that you could be faced with in a leadership deficit situation. And honestly, it sounds to me, and I think that CIG might have that exact problem. And Jared inadvertently, I think, called that problem out in SCL. So if a lot of our problems are stemming from the fact that, what's going on with my shield? If a lot of our problems are stemming from the fact that we have teams that don't know what the other are doing and they're not unified in that vision and understanding of what needs to happen, then we've got kind of a big issue. Because in something like the persistent universe, you need some cohesion. Oh, I repaired, but it doesn't look like I repaired. Oh, I love bugs. I guess I should have double checked my repair job. You need some cohesion in the project, and you need the team to know where they're going and to know how everything fits together. And in something as massive as a project like Star Citizen, you need a lot of oversight. Now they're talking about they're building all these checkpoints and things like that, but here's what kind of irks me on that. You don't need all these automated checkpoints if you have people who are communicating and know where you're taking things and know where you want things to go. For instance, the example that Jared had with a weapon that they could that you could salvage and take the parts and sell the parts for more than the weapon cost. That whole thing never should have happened. There should have been a moment where internal communication handled those checks and balances, right? There should have been a point where somebody said, "Oh, we have to. What is going on with my shield? I don't like this. Well, let's see what happens." Shields are optional these days. Anyway, so if there was some cohesion in the project and communication, there wouldn't be as big of a worry about things like that happening. Because when the economy team was pricing things out, somebody would have been able to say, "Hey, we have this gun in the shop at XYZ price, and the parts that this gun breaks down into equals this." Somebody would have caught it. I mean, so communication, somebody would have caught it. And the communication starts with leadership. The the cracks that this kind of puts out there for me is there might not be one cohesive vision going on to bring this whole thing to life in a meaningful way, which is not good. There needs to be unification of a vision. There needs to be a direction everybody's going. And you can't just say, well, 1.0 is that direction, that unification. Well, yeah, duh. But somebody needs to have an idea of what the game is, what constitutes the game, Star Citizen. Not just row at 1.0 and these systems. What do those systems look like, right? And how do they interact with each other cohesively? Now, some of that, this is a kind of an unprecedented situation that we have ourselves in here because we are watching the game being developed live, right? And if mistakes like this happen in a normal game, like take GTA 6 for example, that all this stuff's starting to leak about now. In that game, they probably had some times where something like that, not that specific example, right? That specific example is kind of a star-setting example, with guns breaking down to certain money. But overall, there's probably stuff in GTA 6 that while they were developing that game, some of the developers put stuff in place, and as the pieces came together, they were able to say, "Oh, this doesn't work. Let's fix this." I'm not as concerned about the fact that that happened, right, and that made it into the game in an alpha. Not concerned at all. What I'm concerned about is the comments about how they're trying to work together to make sure there's communication so that stuff like that doesn't happen. That's the part that gets me. That's the part that gets me 100%, because that they just told on themselves. They're not communicating. They're not communicating to make sure this stuff doesn't happen. So I really think that CIG needs to do better in that. I think that's something that they need to fix. I don't think setting up these checkpoints and all that stuff is going to fix the communication problem. It might fix the appearance that happens from that, but there's definitely an overall communication problem occurring in that studio. And if they don't get that sorted and they don't get a unified vision of what this game is supposed to be in the end, and make sure they're communicating on a level that systems are working together and make sense together and not potentially working against each other. If they can do that, we'll be in good shape. But right now, it sounds like there's some problems, and they're blaming it on, oh well, we're now developing faster. We didn't have the things in place, and we're developing faster than the systems can check it or whatever. But that, again, if there is open communication and meetings and things like that internally about this kind of stuff before it went live, that's not a concern. That's not something that anyone's worried about, because it would have already been hashed out and talked about. Oh my gosh. This server is real janky. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to throw out there. That was a very gaping problem, and it's definitely a leadership problem that we're hearing excuses for, and we're hearing, oh, we're fixing it, but they're not fixing it by being better leaders. They're fixing it with some automation that they're trying to build in to things. So I would rather see a little more ownership being taken on their part, on the leadership's part, and some more stepping up on the leadership part of things. Because what's happening right now cannot be what goes on in the future. They're talking about learning how to do a live service game, right? Well, part of that is that communication and that correspondence between departments and that unified plan and leadership. Anyway, let me know down below what you think about that little detail and tidbit that we got today. And that's going to do it for now. I'm going to finish taking out this Connie, and I'm going to go get ready for camp next week. So, anyway, enjoy the game. Enjoy your time. Happy Father's Day to the fathers out there. And I will catch you guys next time.